morning or afternoon right now. Today's lesson is the sweet Psalmist of Israel, and that is King David. And we're going to read about King David, the greatest king that Israel had. And we're going to read about some of the Psalms that he wrote concerning not himself, but concerning Christ. King David is going to be king over Israel forever. He pleased the Lord, even in the scriptures that Devin just got through reading. He, King David, pleased the Lord and was a man after the Lord's own heart. He's known as the sweet Psalmist of Israel. And he reigned all the days of his life and only made one mistake. But the Lord really loved David, and he set up everything into his hand. And we're going to read about him and how he established David and how David was blessed throughout his life. But before we start with David, before David was king, Saul was king of Israel. And Saul made a few mistakes that the Lord rejected him. And we're going to go ahead and see why he was rejected. He was the king over Israel, and the Spirit of the Lord was resting on Saul. But Saul did a few things that were wrong. So we're going to go ahead and read that and see it in contrast between Saul and David. So we're going to start at 1 Samuel, 13th chapter, and we're going to go ahead and read, and then we're going to go ahead and skip. These are a few things about him and what he was doing, how Saul and Israel were at war with the Philistines. And Saul did something that was not wise. And Samuel told him, gave him a message. We're going to go ahead and start that and read that. Because the things that the Lord wanted Saul to do, David to do, he always gave all his servants the same message, that he wanted them to listen to his voice, obey him, his statutes, judgments, all of the things. Don't turn to the left hand, don't turn to the right. Do exactly what I want you to do. He told Abraham that, Isaac, Jacob. He told Israel this when they were in the wilderness. He told Saul this, King David, Solomon. He told them all this. And this is something that we have to remember, because we have to go ahead and toe this line and walk it just like they did. And if we don't do right, then we'll get what Saul is going to get. And if we do right, we're going to get what David is going to get into his kingdom. So let's start at 1 Samuel, 13th chapter, and start at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel. Wherefore 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. Right. And the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent.
So he had an army, and they were divided between Saul and his son Jonathan. Go down to verse 5.
And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward from Beth-aven. And when the men of Israel saw that they were in strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves, and thickets, and in rocks, and in high places, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he went into Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling.
So they were all scared because of the Philistines and the great number that they had. But they had the Lord with them. Go ahead, verse 8.
And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him.
So they were scared once Samuel didn't come when he was supposed to come at the appointed time. Verse 9.
And Saul said, Bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering.
So when Samuel didn't get there, Saul went to go ahead and bring off a peace offering, burnt offering to the Lord. But skip down to verse 13. When Samuel did arrive, he told Saul this. Go ahead, verse 13. And Samuel said unto Saul.
And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever.
He would have established it forever, but he sinned against the Lord. Verse 14.
But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee.
Now, when he says that the Lord has sought a man after his own heart, the heart is a flesh and blood muscle. He wants a man that is going to think like him. The Lord wants someone that's going to think exactly like him. And Saul was not doing that. See? So now we're going to go a little bit further. So he sinned there, and Samuel told him that I'm going to seek someone, the Lord is going to seek someone after his own heart. Someone that's going to think like him and do like him and obey him and won't sin. So even though he did this, Samuel was still king over Israel, even all this was going on. But the Lord set something in motion. We're going to go to 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter. 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Now, Saul had messed up there, but then the Lord gave him another task to go ahead and complete. And Saul messed up again. Let's go ahead and read it now, what's going to happen. Verse 1, go ahead.
1 Kings 15 and 1.
Yes.
Samuel also said unto Saul, The Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over Israel, and over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together, and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 footmen, and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to the city of Amalek, and laid wait in the valley.
Hold on. So now we see here that verse 3, he said, now go and smite Amalek, these people, that the Amalekites, utterly destroy them, spare not any of them, slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. This is specific. And the Lord said, obey my voice, do all that I command you to. And this is specific. It is telling them exactly what to do. Don't do anything else. Now skip down to verse 9.
But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and of the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refused, they destroyed utterly.
So he did not again. He didn't do exactly what he was told. With the Amalek, the Amalekites here, he saved the best, and they got in trouble for sacrificing before. All right, verse 10.
Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, It repented me that I have set up Samuel to be king, for he is turned back from following me, and have not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. And when Samuel rose early...
Okay, now skip down to verse 22.
Verse 22.
So he see that the Lord had repented from making Samuel a king. He messed up twice. Verse 22.
And Samuel said, Have the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice as in obeying the voice of the Lord?
No.
Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams.
So he said it's better to obey the voice of the Lord than to go ahead and do great sacrifices. And it's that way then, and it is that way now. The Lord wants you to obey him. Just because you got these fancy things as far as things to sacrifice to the Lord is not impressed with that at all. Now skip down to verse 25.
25. Now therefore I pray thee, pardon my sin and turn again with me, that I may worship the Lord.
Now this is Saul talking. And what did Samuel say?
And Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel.
And this is why he was turned away from being the king of Israel. He was rejected. And the Lord sought a man after his own heart. Go, let me see. Yeah, so you finished that. Let's go to 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. This is when he's going to find the one that's going to obey him, a man after his own heart. 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite. For I have provided me a king among his sons.
So a king among Jesse's sons is going to reign over Israel. And this is who he wants him to anoint. Samuel was mourning for Saul, wanting the Lord to go ahead and have mercy on him. But the Lord said, this is a done deal. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto thee.
Okay, skip down to verse 5.
Verse 5. And he said, Peaceably I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they were come, that he looked on Eliab, and said, Surely the Lord anointed is before him.
So this is one of the first sons of Jesse. And he looked at Eliab and said that surely he'd be anointed. But what did the Lord say here?
But the Lord said unto Samuel, Look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For I, the Lord, seeth not as man seeth. For a man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart.
And this is something that we must keep in mind. This is one of the scriptures that I marked down here, because this is the way that the Lord looks at us. He does not regard that if we are tall, if we're handsome, or if we look the part. He cares if we obey. If we obey him, and that if we have a mind to follow him with all our heart, all our mind, and all our soul. He is not impressed with the things that man is impressed with. He looks at our mind or at our heart inside to see if we'll go ahead and obey. Skip down to verse 9.
Verse 9. Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, Neither have the Lord chosen this. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, The Lord hath not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Are here all thy children? And he said, There remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for he will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Saul rose up and went to Ramah.
Okay, so we see here now that the Spirit of the Lord was on him from that day on. Verse 14.
But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and the evil spirit from the Lord troubled him.
And this is the way that it was until the day that Saul died. The Spirit of the Lord was on David until he died, and the evil spirit was on Saul until he died. All right, now let's go a little bit further. Let's go to 2 Samuel, the 23rd chapter. So this is the way that the Lord had operated. We're going to read 1 through 5. Now, 2 Samuel 23, get there, go ahead.
Now these are the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised up on high, though anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said.
So he was the sweet psalmist of Israel. And this is what he said, verse 2.
The Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The Lord, the God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And he shall be as the light of the morning, when the sun rises, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Although my house be not so with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant, order in all things, and sure. For this is all my salvation, and all my desire, although he make it not to grow.
Oh, so there's a whole lot to unpack here. That the Lord made him the sweet psalmist of Israel. He had over 70 plus psalms, and the Spirit of the Lord spake by his tongue, because in these psalms, it talked more than about what the Lord was doing. It had messages about Christ when he came onto the scene and about what he was going to do. So the Spirit was truly on him, and he did fear the Lord, and he feared the Lord's anointed. This was the way that the Lord, or David, operated, went throughout his life. Even though Saul had an evil spirit on him and tried to kill him, David had respect unto him because he was the Lord's anointed and did not lay a hand on him. He let the Lord handle all of this business at all. And he did fear the Lord. So let's go to Matthew, the 27th chapter.
Should we go to Psalms 22?
Oh, yeah, let's go. Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, let's go to Psalms, the 22nd chapter. Psalms 22. And we're going to see read about some of the Psalms that David wrote. Because he was a man after the Lord's own heart. He did the things that the Lord wanted him to do, the way he's going to operate. All right. Psalms 22,